Hi, I'm Kat Foster, and I'm here with Deepak Chopra, and we're at GIO headquarters in La Jolla, California. GIO is the Internet of Wellbeing, and we're here to talk about Deepak's new book, You Are the Universe, which he co-wrote with Menas Kafatos, his longtime collaborator. And I'm going to ask him a series of questions about his book.
Thank you.
Thank you. What made you write this book?
It's probably the culmination of a lifetime's journey. When I was actually less than 6 years of age, living in Mumbai with my grandparents and my then uncles, one of whom incidentally was a film director in Bollywood.
No way.
My parents were away in England. My father was studying to be a cardiologist. And one day we got a telegram. In those days you sent telegrams. It took 24 hours to get the message. We got a telegram from my dad in England that he had passed all his exams and he had just become a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians. My grandfather, who was a very proud father of his children, took out a gun. We went to the rooftops and he shot at the skies in celebration. Then he took us to see a movie. It was a movie that I still remember, even though I was less than 6 years, I was 5 years. It's Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves.
Wow.
And then after that, he took us to a carnival where we saw all kinds of amazing, delightful things. Then we came home and in the middle of the night, I heard the wailing of women crying and a servant picking me and my little brother up and taking us to a neighbor's house. And it seemed that my grandfather had just died, probably of the shock of this delightful news.
Sure.
And he was taken to the cremation grounds. His ashes were brought back in a little bottle about this big. And one of my uncles made the remark, he said, "What is life?" Yesterday he was celebrating and took the kids to the carnival, to the movies, and now there he is in a bottle of ashes. And at 5 years of age, I actually had a lot of anxiety at that moment. I was very close to my grandfather and said, "What happened?" And that led to almost a lifelong journey through medical school and all aspects of experience with very fundamental questions. Who are we? What is the meaning of existence? What is the meaning of death? Does God exist? If God exists, does he or she or it care about us? Is this a random universe by accident? Is our planet just a speck of dust in a minor galaxy somewhere in the junkyard of infinity? Or is something else going on? That led me to become a doctor, go into the healing profession, look at human suffering, and ultimately to the questions that are posed in this book, and maybe some answers too.
That's exciting. Great. Well, shall we ask some of these questions?
Yeah, if you want.
So in this book, you answer, for example, the chapter name is What Came Before the Big Bang?
What came before the Big Bang? So our current cosmology says that about 13.8 billion years ago, out of nothing, there was something that happened which gave birth to the universe. That event is called the Big Bang. First of all, it was neither big nor did it bang. the universe started out about the size of a dot, which is equal to the size of a period at the end of a sentence.
So it probably sounded like
Yeah,
just like a little
a
something.
whimper.
If it made a
pop.
sound at all, we don't know.
Yeah, there was no sound.
If,
You
no, there's
had
no
to
one
have-
here to hear the
yeah,
universe.
Correct.
Right.
So, what caused the Big Bang? There are many theories, and the current one is called chaotic inflation. If we have time, I can explain it, but it doesn't matter. It's a mathematical explanation. When we go back in time and we can observe certain things like cosmic radiation that goes back a long time to the birth of stars and before that. But then you get to a point which is called Planck's scale, which is 10 to the power of minus 37 seconds after the Big Bang. And there are no laws of physics. There's no space, there's no time, there's nothing that you call energy or matter. So beyond this, we can't enter. And what caused the Big Bang, nobody can give you an answer. That's the science stance right now. The universe is accidental. Maybe there are cycles of reincarnation the universe goes through, these big bangs and what are called big crunches. And just like all of existence, everything recycles, so does the universe. But these are all in mathematical imagination.
Speculation.
Speculation. No one knows. But, I go into, in the book, I go into all the current theories. Everything from cosmology to general relativity to special relativity to quantum mechanics to just tell our reader what the current state of knowledge is.
That's cool. So you outline.
Yes.
You outline the options for what you want to believe scientifically. Okay, amazing. And so our second chapter here is why does the universe fit together so perfectly?
So again, that's in science, that's called the Anthropic Principle. For us to have this conversation, the ratio of the gravitational field to the electromagnetic field has to be precise to a decimal point. The mass of the proton has to be precise to a decimal point. There are a number of things that scientists refer to as constants. And they all have to be very precise and they all have to fit together. And that is called the Anthropic Principle, that the universe is specifically orchestrated through numbers and constants and elements and forces so we could have this conversation. That means that the principle states that the universe basically was created so we could be here.
That's real cool. Okay, where does time come from?
Again, according to current science, time was born when there was the creation or the birth of experience. So we have experience in space and time. Space and time are used synonymously. So time is a way of measuring space, space is a way of measuring time, and we live in this world of what we call space-time and causality, where time follows a straight line from past, present to future. This may be an illusion, even Einstein said, this may be an illusion. But what existed before time is almost an oxymoron, because before time there couldn't have been time. So wherever time was born, it was not a place in time. But I do go over in the book all the current theories, how astronauts experience time, how other cultures experience time, how we experience time. And in my view, time is actually the movement of thought that uses our internal reference point as our ego identity. So I say, when I was 3 years old, when I was a teenager, We're using an internal reference point, which is not our true essence, which is not in time, but our experience in the world, which is in time. As you can see, all the 9 questions, there are many theories, but no clear answers.
Sure, but you outline the potential answers.
Yes.
Yes. Is there design in the universe?
Is there design in the universe is a question that annoys a lot of scientists because it implies there's a creator, there's a God, or whatever, there's a designer. What we see in this book is how design is created in our own consciousness. We construct the design out of a random, chaotic, ambiguous soup of energy and information. Design is in us because the universe exists in us, which is the title of the book.
You are the universe. Yeah. Is the quantum world linked to everyday life?
Another very important question, because when we speak of quantum, people speak of waves and particles. Particles have units of mass and energy, but the quantum world doesn't look like this, or you, or me, or this chair. Our experience of the world is not quantum at all. It's what they say classical. We're experiencing a classical world. So how does the quantum relate to the classical? That's a question that's discussed in this book with, again, whatever the current prevailing scientific theories are.
Got it.
How does energy, information, uncertainty, ambiguity become this?
Right. Do we live in a conscious universe?
Well, we live in a universe that is experienced in consciousness. And that is an important thing to understand, that all experience occurs in consciousness. So we live in a world where the universe comes into existence as experience in our being, in our consciousness, in our awareness. And it comes into experience as thoughts, sensations, images, feelings, sense perceptions. So in a way, we don't live in a conscious universe. We live in a universe which comes into existence in consciousness, which means the universe is conceived, governed, constructed, and becomes an experience in our own self, as does our body. So this is actually the basis of the whole book, that we are, in a sense, co-creating the universe.
Right. Because the universe itself doesn't have consciousness.
Yeah, there is only consciousness. The universe is an experience in consciousness.
Yeah.
And it is generated in consciousness, it is experienced in consciousness, it is known in consciousness, and ultimately, which we're giving away, it is made out of consciousness, which is the deep understanding of Advait. And this is something that Rupert Spira, who teaches a form of meditation, allows you to get this understanding.
Meaning that we can't exist apart from each other, the universe and us.
Yes, the meaning that at the end, everything exists all at once in entanglement as a possibility. And that expresses itself as innumerable modes of experience, innumerable so-called objects of experience, and innumerable experiencers. The knower, the known, the process of knowing, the seer, the seen, the scenery, the process of seeing, they're all one consciousness.
Right. How did life first begin?
There are theories of how life began from chemicals, many theories, but even chemicals is a human construct. Scientifically, no one can tell you how life began. But if life is what we call consciousness, then it had no beginning. It was never born and is not subject to death.
It preceded the. It preceded the.
It preceded the. How did you do it? Yeah, it preceded the.
Does the brain create the mind?
So that's another big question in science today. Does the brain create the mind? Does the mind create the brain? Is the brain what the mind does? Is the mind what the brain does? Are they doing it to each other, or are they being done by something else? And as we go into this book, you'll see that mind and brain are complementary aspects of the same underlying transcendent field of consciousness. So I'm giving you these short answers, and the book, of course, goes into great detail.
Yeah. I mean, it's over 200 pages.
Yeah, it's close to 300, actually.
It's close to 300 pages. All right. Well, shall we talk about the power of personal reality?
Well, we can just say that ultimately, if the universe is an experience in consciousness, and that all experience is generated in your own inner being, then we are living right now in a universe that is a human construct. It's a human story of experiences of sensations, images, sense perceptions. So stars and galaxies which we think exist out there are actually experiences in being. And that the body, the mind, and the universe are basically subtle and more physical aspects of experience that is being generated within ourselves. Now, there have been different constructs of the universe. The divine construct, God created the universe, Book of Genesis. Mythological constructs, the Newtonian worldview of classical physics, the Einstein's world of general and special relativity, the post-relativistic world of quantum mechanics. If you look at all these worldviews, that's what they are. They are human constructs that come out of the interpretation of experience, whether that's perceptual experience, cognitive experience, imagination, mathematics, nevertheless experience. So none of these worldviews actually explains what's happening right now to us, this conversation of why we feel the texture of the skin in a certain way, or respond to a voice in a certain way, or see an image or an object. So ultimately what I'm saying in this book is that we are all embedded in a construct, and that no construct has a privileged position over another construct, whether it's a divine construct, a mythological construct, a theological, a religious construct, or a scientific construct. They're all construct, but for the person who's embedded in that construct, it's real. And yet it's not real because it's created by us. Is there something in which the construct arises? Where is the construct arising as a result of the interpretation of experience? That is the real you. That way you are the universe. And as you go deeper into an understanding of your own being, then you can participate in the creation of personal reality. And in the book, we actually go into details of how do you construct a new universe.
And if you were to say that like there was an overriding intention in writing this book, is that what it is? Because you want people to understand how they can
The
co-create
overriding
their
intention is to
realities.
realize that we are creating and co-creating our reality, that our true being is not in time and therefore was never born, not subject to death. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's an expression in the teachings by Lord Krishna to Arjuna when he's talking about being. He says, water cannot wet it, wind cannot dry it, weapons cannot shatter it, fire cannot burn it. It's ancient, it's unborn, it's not subject to death. That's the true freedom from all the fears we have, because all the fears we have are based on not knowing the true nature of reality, grasping and clinging at experience which is in time, therefore ungraspable, recoiling from other experiences, identifying with another construct called the ego, and the fear of death. So the intention in writing this book is actually to go beyond all that, to understand reality as it really is, which is the you that is not in time, which is having the experiences which are in time.
Like, let's say there's somebody who has never engaged in this conversation about reality and co-creating it with the universe and consciousness. And let's say that person like has a sudden interest and they read your book. What are the, like, beyond reading the book, like how does this person who wants to have this experience of creating her reality start going about doing that? And then the follow-up question is this a craft that we learn over time, or is this something that we're born with and maybe forget and then recultivate? Like, what, I guess experientially, practically, like?
Well, in modern times, the focus of education is about everything in the world, but not about yourself at all. Mm-hmm. So in traditional cultures, there were contemplative practices throughout the world, but particularly in the East, which looked at daily practice or sadhana, which was reflective, asking questions like, who am I? What is the purpose of my existence? What is the meaning of life? How do I cultivate a relationship? What is my story? How am I creating the story of my life? What is the meaning of death? So those practices still exist. We teach them at some of our courses. Then there are practices of stillness. There are practices that cultivate awareness of sensory experience, of the body, of what's happening inside the body, of mental space, of the web of relationship. There are practices that allow you to transcend and go beyond this experience of space-time and causality. There are practices to cultivate love and compassion and joy and meaning in relationship. Unfortunately, they're kind of not part of our culture. Now, even though I've been exploring those practices and we've been teaching them at our Chopra Center courses, and now we're doing research through the foundation on how those practices influence our biology. And there's never been an in-depth collective engagement in exploring what can be called reality. So my hope is that this book and our conversation and interest in this book and will create a series of programs, webinars, online explorations where we can collectively go deeper into the nature of reality. And I think that's the ultimate goal. To decrease suffering is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, because when we find that we can create our realities, we suffer less.
We suffer less. We also understand the causes of suffering, which has been the eternal quest, which has actually created religion and spiritual practice. But a lot of that got kind of caught up in ideological dogma or another construct. So one of the things after examining all these constructs is no system of thought, whether it's a religious system of thought, theological system of thought, mythology, or science, because science is also a system of thought. No system of thought can give you access to reality. It can create a model, then it can teach you how to operate within that model. But ultimately, reality is beyond thought, is through experience of transcendence. One of my favorite lines is from Rumi, where he says God's language is silence. Everything else is a poor translation. So this is a poor translation.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk forever. Do you?
This is good.
You like it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know, it requires practice to take words like these and concepts that we understand intellectually and to know how to digest them in such a way that we can have experiences that words talk about or describe or concepts illuminate us to.
Yes, and those practices are what spirituality should all be about. Reflection, transcendence, self-awareness, and the whole wheel of awareness as expounded by great teachers before us. By reading this book, we get a roadmap. Whether it's through transcendence, whether it is through a meditative practice, through love. Love is also a practice of the spirit, or a self-reflection of the intellect, or through daily behavior in a way that reminds you to connect with your source.
And in your own experience, did you find that an intellectual understanding preceded some self-awareness or an experiential understanding, or did you find that they came together synergistically, spontaneously?
They come together synergistically, although I have a bias towards intellectual understanding. But as the big book shows, even scientific intellectual understanding leads to what you call a dead end. Ultimately, it has to be all experiential.
Yeah. Yeah. And then once you find that, I mean, I think about this a lot, like when you've had your most significant consciousness shifts, when you've had your most significant experiences that have felt unifying, as it were, do you spontaneously remember this always, or does do you, I guess I'm asking, and obviously you don't have to answer, you can cut this, but like, as you, Deepak Chopra, do you come in and out of oneness, or do you find that you stay there?
I find that it's a journey of inclusion and transcendence, inclusion and transcendence. You've come to some of the courses, particularly Silent Awakenings, where we have spontaneous insights, and they lead to the next insight. So it's a journey, but I think the more you stay with it, the more you are staying with it.